Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodanandana Vrajajana Jai Vaishnava Prabhu se Privaraja Kacharya Swami Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Vaishnava Prabhu se Privaraja Kacharya Satarami Shri Srimad Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Sarvati Thakur Prabhupada ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivedanta ki Jai. Gom Premanandi. All glories to the Sangha devotees. Que gloire de vos assemblées. All glories to the Sangha devotees. Glory Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. So it was a kind of funny coincidence that Maharaj a couple of days ago, Purushottama Maharaj, chose of all the Bhagavatam verses, because we're just randomly choosing a verse, that he chose the teachings of Lord Kapila to Devahuti, the same canto, third canto, chapter 29 and text 11 and 12, but I was thinking of doing text 10, so it was a funny coincidence. So I don't know if I'll be as inspiring as Maharaj, but we'll see what we can do. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 One thing I just wanted to mention before starting the classes, it's so nice to be with devotees. It's a rare occasion to be with devotees. We realize when we're with devotees that it's our wealth that Prabhupada gave us such a wonderful treasure, of association amongst ourselves. And one time Prabhupada was in Mayapur and he was hearing the kirtan and he told the devotees, some GBCs and people were there, so he said, you invite all the devotees to come to Mayapur. So they were a little shocked. Prabhupada was, no, here, everything is here. We have nice kirtan, we have prasadam. When we get a little heated up, we can bathe in the Ganges. No problem. What is the problem? I probably used to say, what is the difficulty? So of course the managers were freaking out if everyone leaves, So they were thinking what to do, how to convince Prabhupada of something else. They said, well, Prabhupada, what about the preaching? So I said, yes, okay, the preaching. that has to go on. But he was feeling, so it's like that. When you're with devotees, you don't want it to end. I actually have to admit that often after these festivals, I go home and I get depressed for a day or two, and then I kind of reboot. But I actually get emotionally affected. So, anywho, so this verse is as I mentioned, the third canto, text 29, chapter 29, verse 10. Karma niharam udishya parasmin va tad arpanam yajed yasvavyam iti va pritag bhava sa samvika karma niharam udishya parasmin vatad arpanam yajed yastavyam iti va pritag bhava sa satvika karma niharam udishya parasmin vatad arpanam yajed yastavyam iti va pritag bhava sa satvika karma niharam udishya parasmin vatad arpanam yajed yastavyam iti va pritag bhava sa satvika
karma nirharam udishya parasmin vatad arpanam yajed yastavyam iti va pritag bhava sa satvika
karma nirharam udishya parasmin vatad arpanam yajed yastavyam iti va pritag bhava sa satvika
karma niharam udishya parasmin vatad arpanam yastavyam iti va pritag bhava sa satvika
karma nirharam udishya
Vaishnavi. One more. Karma, fruit of activities. Niharam, freeing himself from. Udishya, with the purpose of. Parasmin, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Va, or. Tat arpanam, offering the results of activities. Yajit, may worship. Yastavyam, to be worshipped. Iti, thus. Va, or. Pritak bhava, separatist. Sa, he. Satvika, in the mode of goodness. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. Please repeat. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. Purport. The Brahmins, Kshatras, Vaishyas and Sudras, along with the Brahmacharis, Grihasthas, Vanaprasthas and Sannyasis, are the members of the 8 divisions of Varnas and Ashrams, and they have their respective duties to perform for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When such activities are performed and the results are offered to the Supreme Lord, they are called karmarpanam, duties performed for the satisfaction of the Lord. If there is any iniquities or fault, it is atoned for by the offering process. But if this offering process is in the mode of goodness rather than in pure devotion, then the interest is different. The 4 ashrams and the 4 varnas act for some benefit in accordance with their personal interests. Therefore, such activities are in the mode of goodness. They cannot be counted in the category of pure devotion. Pure devotional service is described by Rupa Goswami is free from all material desires, anyavilasika sunyam. There can be no excuse for personal or material interests. Devotional activities should be transcendental to fruitive activities and empirical philosophical speculation. Pure devotional service is transcendental to all material qualities. Devotional service in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness can be divided into 81 categories. There are different devotional activities such as hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering prayers, rendering service, and surrendering everything. And each of them can be divided into 3 qualitative qualities. There is hearing in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance, in the mode of goodness. Similarly, there is chanting in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness, etc. 3 multiplied by 9 equals 27, and when again multiplied by 3, it becomes 81. One has to transcend all such mixed materialistic devotional service in order to reach the standard of pure devotional service as explained in the next verses. Karma niharam uddisya parasmin va tararpanam yajet yastavyam itiva pritag bhava sadvika. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. Om Yajnana Dasya Chala Sharakaya Chakshurunita Tasman Shri Guru Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vidagrara Shosari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Rama Hare Hare. Mukam Karoti Vacharam Pangam Langyayate Giram. Yakripatamam Vande Shri Gurum Jimitaranam. So, Srila Prabhupada begins his purport by describing the Varnashram system. And actually, any civilized society should be part of that Varnashram system. But Varnashram system actually means what? Dealing with our insanity. More or less, everyone in the material world is insane because we're running after a mirage, we're running after something that is not real. So it has to be contained, just like a fire. If you light a fire, when you have a wood stove, you have dampers to control it, otherwise it just rages and the whole house can burn down. So similarly, when we're pursuing material gratification, we can burn ourselves, we can destroy our consciousness. In that reality, we cannot destroy our consciousness, but we can really impact ourselves and be stuck in the material world perpetually. So Varnashram is a system that I probably used to say that marriage or alcohol or these things are dangerous if they're not guided properly. So there's license. There's a license for marriage. There's a license for drinking. For driving a vehicle, there's license. So Varnashram is a kind of a license where it guides everyone and puts people in different categories. And Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, we know he describes the four kinds of people come to him. Those who are distressed, seeking wealth, curious, and wise. So it's to be expected that when we come to devotional service, we may not be pure. Very rare that people come, unless like Prabhupada or someone is coming directly from the spiritual world and engaging directly in Krishna service. But generally speaking, people are in different modes of material nature. And Prabhupada describes here there's 81 type of Vaishnavas based on the different modes of nature in regards to the devotional service that they're practicing. But it's good. Akama Sarvakama Va Moksha Kama Udariti Tevrina Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. And Krishna says that if you have desires, no desires, or seeking liberation, you should approach him. Because by approaching Krishna, we'll eventually get purified from that if we stick with the process. And one time Achyutananda was asking Prabhupada, what is the better system? He was asking, is the Christians better? Or those who follow like Vedic society? Prabhupada said better Vedic because it aims at eventually offering everything to Vishnu. So it's a system, Varnashram system is a system that eventually everyone will make systematic progress and get out of the modes of material nature. And as we were reading previously with Purushottama Maharaj, that different modes are there. Those who worship Krishna in the mode of ignorance, sometimes they can be angered, there are different things, symptoms that are there. But we should not think that in the process of purification, those things will be eliminated. They will be purified. Anger is there, and like he was mentioning it, sometimes people think, oh, you're a sadhu, you're not supposed to become angry. But that's not our process. Our process, as we get purified, these things will become in the background, and Krishna will come in the forefront. But they'll remain there in the background. And they'll be utilized, but as Krishna explains in the Gita, it will be like a tortoise that the limbs are brought in, and we will not be influenced by that, but that will serve us because there has to be variety. The living entity has consciousness, and the manifestation of consciousness is desire. Without consciousness, there's no desire, and that's why the process, it's a side thing, but the scientists are foolish because there's no consciousness by which things can evolve. There's no desire to evolve. Just like we're in the forest here, but so many things were built. Why? Because there was a desire. Otherwise, it would have remained a forest. So desires create impetus. And the different things that are there, like Rupa Goswami describes in Nectar of Devotion, how Kunja, she approached Krishna with lusty desires. And there's a description of, and sometimes even Radharani demonstrates anger towards Krishna, Mana, where she's angered at Krishna. She doesn't want to speak to Krishna. And Krishna has to get her out of that mood, because sometimes Padma will somehow in the associates of Chandravali will capture Krishna and divert him. Krishna's going towards Radharani, but they'll divert her. divert Krishna towards Chandravali, and then Radharani's thinking, what's he doing? You know, Krishna can't be satisfied by Chandravali. I'm the only one who can satisfy him. But it's not out of arrogance. She knows that she's the only one who can satisfy Krishna. So she's angered at Krishna. That why is Krishna being foolish? You know. So these qualities, they will remain with us. It's not the process of Krishna consciousness is not the process of elimination. In the beginning, yes, we want to eliminate these things because they're so powerful agents that they have such an influence on our consciousness that to surmount that we have to put all that aside, you know. But gradually these things will all come back because they're part of the living entity. Like lust, the pure conversion of lust is love. But you can't remove lust, you know. It's impossible. Krishna says, Devi Yushagunamayi Mamamaya Jarateya. It's impossible to overcome material nature. You only overcome it by surrendering to me. So the process of Krishna consciousness, renunciation, most people think renunciation is to remove yourself from it. But Krishna consciousness is to add something to it. And like Prabhupada used to say that everything is a zero, but when you add Krishna, it becomes 1, 10, 1,000. It has value. So whatever is there, it's not a process of removing it, it's a process of purifying it. And the process of devotional service will purify the subtle body. It will remove the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego. But how does it do that? How does it remove? It removes the attitude that we have. Right now our attitude towards Krishna is, I'm not interested in serving Krishna. So, but the process of devotional service will change our attitude that I will want to serve Krishna. So the mind, the intelligence, and of course the false ego will become the real ego. The false ego means, you know, Prakriti Kriya Manani Gunai Karma Sarvasaha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartahang iti manyati, that I'm the controller, and therefore I'm the enjoyer. So I have no interest in serving Krishna. I think I'm self-contained. And these verses also describe that each of these devotees in their neophyte state, they have a separatist mentality. But that separate mentality, sometimes it can be that I want to be separated from everyone, but ultimately that separate mentality means that I feel myself separate from Krishna. And in a pious state, I recognize, okay, if I can get God as my partner, as described here, then I will pray to God, I will worship God, but I want the fruit of results. So the difference between the mode of goodness is not that they're not worshiping Krishna, and the devotees worshiping Krishna. So from an external point of view, it may seem both are doing the same thing, but the one in the mode of goodness, he simply wants to benefit from the fruit of results. He doesn't want that to be removed. He simply wants Krishna to remove. It's like, I want the fire, but I don't want the smoke. So you deal with the smoke, Krishna, and I'm going to enjoy the fire. But the pure devotee, he wants out of the material world. He doesn't want material enjoyment. He doesn't want any of that. He just wants to serve Krishna. And he doesn't want to be, it's not a payment that is an exchange. Okay, I bought this and I get this. So I worship you and I'm going to get this in exchange. I'm going to worship Krishna and then I'm going to get the beautiful wife, I'm going to get the nice car, I'm going to get... It's nice, it's a beginning. But when the person met Sanatana Goswami and he wanted the most wealthiest thing, Sanatana said, well, you go there and pick up this. So there was a touchstone that Sanatana had thrown in a heap of garbage. That, touchstone means if you touch any metal, it turns into gold. So the man was a little intelligent. He took it, but then he realized, why is it in the garbage? This guy must be cheating me. He must have something even better. So he went back to Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana said, well, if you want the real thing, you have to give that up. Then I'll give you the real thing. So the giving up is not that we reject, but the giving up is the desire to enjoy, to be the primary enjoyer rather than the secondary enjoyer. We're meant to enjoy, because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. We're part and parcel of Krishna. We're also meant to enjoy. But there's a method, there's a way of how to do it. There's a method. We become the secondary enjoyer, where I offer the flower to Krishna, then I can smell it. I offer the prasadam to Krishna, then I can enjoy it. but I'm enjoying in the fact that it's been offered to Krishna. That's why I'm enjoying, not because I'm the enjoyer, but this is because Krishna's enjoyed that. You know, like Shrutakirti was saying, Prabhupada would say that a girl should be dressed nicely. Krishna doesn't like ugly gopis, right? But the mood is not that I'm dressing nice to entice everyone and be the center of attraction. I want to please Krishna. So that requires purification. It's a subtle, and it's a little tricky. Krishna says that it's to understand the mystery of myself is very difficult, because from a pure Gyan platform, it's kind of difficult to understand devotional service, because we sometimes mention that we have to reject these things like anger and so forth. But then we see it being used. Like Lord Chaitanya, he became so angered when Jagat Madai struck Nityananda. So it's confusing, you know. And or the idea that God is all-knowing, but then Krishna gets confused when the cowherd boy enters in Aghasura's mouth, and he temporarily appears to be confused before entering. So it's like, how is it that God can become confused? You know? So they have a hard time. So only a devotee can understand these things, because actually, sometimes we say devotees, Prabhu, you're in Maya, but actually we're always in Maya. We're either in Mahamaya or in Yoga Maya. So the devotee wants to be in Maya, but he wants to be in the Yoga Maya. He doesn't want to be in the Mahamaya, because Mahamaya covers us and makes us forget Krishna, where Yoga Maya makes us forget so that we can enter into Krishna's pastimes. And even Balaram, sometimes he becomes, you know, and all the inhabitants, everyone becomes, they understand Krishna in different ways, and it appears they get covered over, but it's only for Leela, for pastimes. So that is very difficult for common, ordinary people to be able to understand that principle of bhakti. And that's why there's a distinction between Gyan and bhakti. But Gyan is important in the beginning, because knowledge and detachment, Krishna says, can curb the lust and greed of the living entity. And Krishna describes these to be the most difficult enemy of the living entity, that greed and that lust to want to enjoy the material world. We saw, and even Prabhupada told us that most of my disciples, they want the heavenly planets. We want to be able to enjoy, and to give up that propensity of being the primary enjoyer is very difficult. But if we look at Balaram, who's the Adi Guru, although he's senior in age, he's always serving Krishna. He's guiding us, you know. And when we look at it, like Balaram, he was very in favor of Duryodhana. He loved Duryodhana. He was his favorite student. Balaram taught him mace, how to fight with the mace. And he wanted, at one point, he wanted that Duryodhana, Subhadra married Duryodhana. But Krishna wasn't interested. Although Duryodhana's daughter, Laxminath, had married Samba. So Krishna and Duryodhana, they were related, you know, family related. But when it came time to Subhadra, then Krishna was not so inclined. So he told Arjuna that you come and disguise yourself as a sannyasi. And Balaram couldn't recognize Arjuna. So you think he's a spring person of the Godhead, how's that possible? See? So a non-devotee has a hard time entering into the pastime and understanding what's going on. But we understand this is Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is covering Balaram to have this wonderful pastime. So Arjuna comes, and Balaram is all elated, and he's all happy. Some sadhus come to Dwarka to bless us, very nice. And he says to Subhadra, you should serve this sadhu because he'll bless you, and that'll be very nice for you. So Krishna says, are you sure? Because we don't know this fellow, we just arrived, you know. And Balaram says, how can you say that? He's a sadhu. Right? So Subhadra starts serving, and her eyes gets bigger and she becomes more attractive. and like that. And within a few days, she's gone with Arjuna. And Balaram recognizes he's got cheated. So he wants to kill Arjuna. And he wants, so he gathers an army to go and run after Arjuna. And Krishna says, yeah, but look what's going on. Did you see? It's not Arjuna that's driving the chariot, it's Subhadra. She's kidnapping him. She wants him. So then Balaram realized, okay, maybe that's what's going on. So Krishna pacified him. And he realized Krishna wants that. So that's why Balaram didn't take part in the Battle of Kurukshetra. He knew that Krishna was siding with Arjuna and the Pandavas, so he didn't want to interfere. So he left, So these pastimes go on, and it's wonderful. Devotees cherish these kind of wonderful pastimes of Krishna, and they understand. And like in Vrindavan, the Yogamaya covers different personalities, so they can have so many different pastimes. Like Radharani in Yavat, she's married to Abhimanyu. But Abhimanyu he's like a clown, he's actually the shadow of Krishna. And they have a lot of fun. But she's not really married. I mean, Radharani is only Krishna. But that's not a social thing. Socially, Krishna and Radharani, they're not together, and they shouldn't be together. And Jatila, she's the mother of Abhimanyu. She's always trying to protect, to prevent Radharani from being with Krishna. And she's always very suspicious that this is going on, right? So she's always trying to capture Radharani and Krishna together to expose Radharani, And Radharani's always, So one time there was this is going on, there's rumors, there's talks about Radharani not being so chaste and so forth and so on. So Radharani was feeling a little morose. So Krishna said, okay, I will settle this. So he appeared as Krishna became sick, and Krishna manifests himself as a Kaviraj, a doctor. So they're all running around, Krishna's sick, what to do, and they said, oh, you're a Kaviraj, please come. I don't know, no, come. So finally he goes there and ascertains Krishna is really, really sick. And the only cure is we have to find a very chaste lady here in Vrindavan that can go to the Yamuna, take a straw basket, fill it up with Yamuna water, put her on her head, and carry it to Krishna. And that will purify, that water will cure Krishna. So of course they choose, Purnamasi. She's like the guru of Vrindavan. And then she's so chaste and everything. So, everyone's okay. They're all being pacified. Krishna will be cured very soon and all that. So she goes there, picks up, everything's fine. The water's there, gets on her head, all falls out. So then they start picking different personalities, in the village, different ladies, and they go to Jatila, and that doesn't work, it all. So finally, well, what about this little girl, I said, nah, girl, forget that, she's not chaste, Radharani, it's like, so finally, let's pick her, So she goes, and finally she's able to pick that water and bring it to Krishna, and therefore her reputation was cleared, no one. So later on, Jatila is still, so she figures out a plan that we're going to move to Mathura. That way for sure Krishna won't be able to be close to Radharani. But Radharani goes to see Durga every day. She does Durga Puja for the prosperity of her family and the longevity of her husband. So Krishna comes behind Durga and disguises himself. So she's there, and Jatila comes in and she's watching, making sure Krishna doesn't show up while she's doing this. And all of a sudden you hear a big voice, Radharani, you're in very deep trouble. What's going on? You're going to be moving to Mathura, and the soldiers of Kamsa will cut Abhimanyu's head. He'll be arrested, his head will be cut off. And like, oh my God, what to do? Jatila's freaking out, So they're going and begging, no please. So don't move to Mathura and stay here. Oh yeah, we make a vow, we'll never leave Vrindavan, So that way that was settled. Like that. So there are different pastimes. So one day Purnamasi told Jatila that because Radharani got a blessing from Durvasa Muni, that whatever she cooked, because Durvasa Muni came and she cooked for Durvasa Muni. So she got a blessing from Durvasa Muni. Whatever she cooks will taste like nectar, and whoever eats that will have longevity. So Purnamasi goes and tells Jatila that you should get Radharani to cook every day for Krishna. So what are you saying? No, this will be very pious for your family. Because Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they're very pious. They have so many cows that they take care of. They're feeding so many Brahmins and so forth. So you'll get the blessings from Mother Yashoda. So say, okay, coming from Purnamasi, she's the guru of the place, okay. So Radharani goes there every day and she's cooking for Krishna. So one day, Mother Yashoda, after cooking, she's feeling so happy and she feels this is such a nice girl. So she starts talking to Radharani, and in affection she's holding her hand and she starts drawing bindi on her hands. Like women get married, they just show. And Radharani's just hearing this and she's kind of, just enjoying the presence of Mother Yashoda and this and that. But after a while, what's going on here? What am I mean, they're going to think I'm marrying Krishna or something, So she's like embarrassed, so she leaves and she finally goes, there's a lake, maybe you know the name, where Radharani washed her hand, Pindi Polka or something like that. And then that water became like yellowish, and then she went home. But another time, she was there cooking and all that, and after she cooked, Mother Yashoda was preparing different things. She had a big trunk and she was putting different things in there, and Krishna came and said, what's happening? What's this for? No, but Radharani is such a nice girl. I'm preparing all these things for her. I'm putting some nice saris and some jewelry and so forth. And when Abhimanyu comes by, I'm going to get him to bring it to Radharani. So Krishna says, okay. So after Mother Yashoda's gone, she closed the trunk. Krishna comes with his friend, says, okay, let's open the trunk, empty everything, hide everything, and I'm going to go inside the trunk, and you guys close it and lock it. So Abhimanyu comes, and she presents this trunk, and she says, this is for Radharani. He lifts that and think, wow, this is really a treasure. Sometimes you get a gift and you're kind of waiting, you haven't seen what's inside this. Wow, this must be a really good gift. It's not light, it's got something solid in here, So he's thinking like that. So he puts the trunk on his shoulder and he carries that to Yavat and brings it to Radharani, and he wants to open it. She says, no, this is a girl's thing. You have to leave. You can't be here because there might be saris, I might be trying it on, and the girls in there, they're all, gopis are all pushing them out, So finally they open the trunk and Krishna comes out. So they're like that. There are different pastimes that go on in Vrindavan, and we're so fortunate that we get that opportunity to read and hear these wonderful pastimes. But for ordinary people, they can't understand these things, because even those who are so-called spiritualists, because for them, that gyan, that intellectual side, is like blocks them. How's that possible? Why would God do this, or why would this happen? And so there's a difference between bhakti and gyan, and there's a difference between the mode of worshipping Krishna and the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. For sure, these 81 kinds of Vaishnava, Prabhupada says, they have to, when you surmount all those levels, then you start coming to the stage of pure bhakti. Brahma bhuta prasanatmana sochati nakanchati samasaveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labhate param. And bhakti really begins at the stage of when there's no more hankering and lamenting. In other words, there's no identification of the body. But even sometimes the Vaishnavas, they lament. Although we're not supposed to lament, the Vaishnavas sometimes they lament. Like Madhavendra Puri, when he was leaving his body, he was lamenting that I'm leaving my body and I've not developed any love for Krishna. And I think it was Ramachandra Khan. Was it Ramachandra? Ramachandra Puri. He was saying, why are you lamenting? Right? You should think of Brahman. Nasochati nakanshati. You shouldn't be lamenting. And he's thinking, oh boy, I'm leaving my body and lamenting, I don't have, and I got this fool next to me agitating my mind. And Madhavendra Puri was it describes that he was in the separatist, but he liked to be alone for his devotion not to be disturbed. So on a certain level, you know, that mentality may be there, just like we know Gorkishore Das Babaji. He made so many attempts to be away from people, to the point that he would sit in the latrines and where people were passing stool and so forth, and he would hide underneath boats and, you know, and like that, so that he wouldn't get disturbed. But his level of consciousness was so high, he went to Vrindavan one time, and he came back, and he was sad. He said, I went all the way to Vrindavan. I could not find one Vaishnava. Imagine the level of consciousness that he was on. But Prabhupada said he was a funny Vaishnava. Of course, as we know, Prabhupada was very funny. We hear Shuddha Kirti giving us so many wonderful stories of Prabhupada. And Gorkishore Das Babaji was also a funny Vaishnava. He would have people come and knock. One time he said, he announced a huge festival. So people came, you know. Everyone came. And when it came time to start the festival, you know, of course people think festival means prasadam. So he said, well, we're very poor, so there won't be any prasadam. We would be feasting on the holy name. Everyone's like, oh man, what's this? Another time, this one rich person, he wanted to invite him because he was doing a huge gathering, and it was like an honor to have such a guest. But it was a way of attracting more people. You know, sometimes you want big guests, big guns to come because more people will show up. So he was saying, Maharaj, we'd like you to come. He said, what for? But we want to be with you. He said, okay, then sit down. Don't go anywhere. I'm here, you're here, we'll be together. You know, so that another time this person came, these fellows came knocking, and they knew he was inside his hut, but he wouldn't come out. So they were, Maharaj, please, Maharaj. Finally, okay, what do you want? We want to come in. Okay, so he stepped outside and invited them in, and then he left. So Vaishnavas sometimes have that mood of, you know, and Prabhupada said also Gorkishore's mood was that I cannot save anyone, let them go to hell. But he said our mood is different. Our mood is to save everyone. So Prabhupada was a different mood where he brought so many people. He wanted to be. And even though we were such, you know, neophytes and so forth, Prabhupada, you know, loved the fact that, you know, and as Shuddha Kirti expressed many times, Prabhupada loved to be with his devotees. And he was never embarrassed. He never made us feel like he was embarrassed by us, even though sometimes people would complain about our ways, and Prabhupada would always defend us. He would always say, yeah, you know, what was that? Were you saying that, Shuddha Kirti, that they're practicing, that someone was complaining that they don't know how to do this, that? That's okay, they're just practicing. Were you the one, or was that in the video? I was watching.
That was Manavisa.
Oh yeah, Manavisa. No, that's okay, they're just practicing, you know. So Prabhupada was able to, and he appreciated the fact that we, you know, I mean, we had no connections with Prabhupada. You know, he was coming here and preaching, and we accepted him. And he was surprised. He thought that when I start giving the principles and so forth, he'll say, Swami, go back home. You know? So Prabhupada had some apprehension that it may not work. But he wasn't prepared to compromise at the same time. He was prepared, he was giving us. And I think it was in Hawaii, he said, you know, I'm giving you this Krishna consciousness. If you take it, that'll be very good for you. If not, what can I do? Another time, I think it was in France, he told the devotees, you know, in Krishna consciousness, there's 4 regulative principles. And one of the principles is no gambling. You know this. Yes, Prabhupada. But you're all gambling that I'm taking you back to Godhead. He started laughing, said, but rest assured, you'll go back. And Dinabandhu was explaining the words sampradaya. Sampradaya, of course, we always describe that we have our sampradaya, but sampradaya also has a definition. It means inheritance, that you inherit. Just like the parents, they have children, and they're always concerned to make sure that they leave something. Well, maybe not today, but in the old days it was like that, where the parent, now the parents just want to enjoy it. Okay, kid, you know, make it on your own, you know, But in the old days, they were thinking, okay, what am I going to leave my children? I have an obligation to help them and make sure that they prosper, everything's great, and so forth. And that's what Sampradaya means, that the acharyas, we're inheriting their mercy, we're inheriting their knowledge, we're inheriting their realization. They're there for us, to guide us, to help us to. And like Prabhupada used to say, you can pray even to Bhaktisiddhanta, the grandfather is more merciful than the father. So it's a welcoming society. The Vaishnavas, they're welcoming us. They're there, they're compassionate, they feel our struggle. And they're there to help. There's no one that is disqualified from taking to devotional service. That's the beauty of devotional service, that there's no prerequisite. It's just get involved, get engaged, do it to the best of your ability. And that's why it's described to be the most auspicious, Madhuram Madhuram, the most auspicious of processes. Because anywhere you take, like Prabhupada says, like a candy bar, anywhere you bite, it's sweet. You bite here or there. So Krishna, anything you do for devotees, or like yesterday there was this program with the yogis and all that, they chanted, they danced, whatever their perception is of what they're doing, they're going to benefit because they're chanting Krishna's holy name, they're taking prasadam. So they're getting purified. And that's why Krishna condemned the approach to the demigods. Because the demigods, they'll fulfill your material desires, but there won't be a purification. While with Krishna, even though you come with material desires, you'll eventually become purified of those desires. Why? Because you'll experience a higher taste. And we were discussing with Krishna the other day, I have personal experience, because when we came to Krishna consciousness, it's not something we're proud of, but we were taking drugs, smoking pot and so forth. And I remember as a young kid, I was 17, I was still smoking, although I was fed up with it. I was looking for something else. And I started coming to the temple, and a couple times I smoked up. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to really enhance the pleasure kind of trip. But it was a downer. I couldn't get into it. Right? It inhibited, like it stopped me from being able to participate. So I gave it up. I thought, this is silly. And then I had a friend, close friend at the time. We had gone actually to Philadelphia and we saw Prabhupada together. But he never joined me. Right? So he called me one time and he said, listen, let's do a last LSD trip together. We'll really trip together, and then as we're downing out, we'll join the temple. Right? On our down,
Soft landing.
Yeah, soft landing trip. And I said, hey, I've already joined. Do what you want to do, whatever it takes you, whatever trip you want to do. But I'm already made that landing. I'm here, So I could understand with Maya trying to, draw me back out, entice me back out in the material world, And I started coming to the temple, and then one day I decided I'm going to move in. So I moved in, and my mind flipped out. I could hear my mind, now you've done it. You've really done it. Like you committed yourself to the thing, it's like you're stuck now. So I told my mind, okay, shut up. I'll make a deal with you. You've been in the material world 17 years. Stay here for 17 years, and then you'll have a full balance. You'll be able to judge properly. Both things, you'll have a fair evaluation. So that way my mind was pacified. You got to talk to yourself sometimes and reason with yourself, because we're all crazy, right? The mind makes us sometimes think of things or do things, and so that's why we have strong philosophy to read, so we can become convinced of the process of Krishna consciousness. Because the process of sadhana bhakti, there's Vaidhi and Raganuga. So Vaidhi means understanding things. It's like when you meet someone, you ask a lot of questions. Maybe you're going to fall in love with someone, you want to know who that person is, where you're from, who's your parents, When you're dating someone after a while, I want you to meet my parents, the whole thing goes, because that's like Vaidhi Bhakti, like the intellectual side of who's Krishna, why we put tilak, all these different things. You want to be grounded. Why is Krishna God? Very grounded. And after you can have the spontaneous thing, where the Raganuga sits in, because you're grounded. If you stay on that platform, then it'll be detrimental. If you're in a relationship, it's natural that in the beginning you'll ask different questions, so forth. But if after 5 years you're still asking the same question, the person's thinking, wow, this person has no faith in me, right? So what am I doing with this person? I mean, God, after 5 years is still questioning who I am, what am I doing, how sincere am I, this, that, so forth, you know, doubting my sincerity, then it ruins the ability to. So it's very important that we sincerely take to the process, we read Prabhupada's books, we get a good foundation, a good understanding, and that understanding is very important because we meet so many different people, even different kinds of Vaishnava. Here it describes there's 81 kind, we only know 2. Ritviks and Gaudiya Mats, but there are other kinds. There's so many kinds. That's just a joke. I didn't mean to offend anybody. I love all of it. I have so many friends who are all different things, you know. But after so many years, you know, people, you know, their 4th marriage or this, that, so forth. So many social and philosophical and different issues, you know, and they're devotees, you know. I mean, you have to expect that these things will happen. And you have to have your own solid convictions of Krishna consciousness and be able to be with others without it affecting you. You know, you have to have that solid maturity. You know, you have to know why you're staying with Srila Prabhupada, why you're not going elsewhere. You know, you have to have a solid foundation of these things. So, and then we can easily interact with others. We can be at ease with everyone because we've got a solid foundation in our Krishna consciousness. So there's other things I could be saying. I'm kind of all over the place, but. If we want to surmount the different modes of material nature in our devotional service, we have to experience being with other people who have surmounted that association. And when we were with Srila Prabhupada, or able to see Srila Prabhupada, we so much wanted to be like him. Just his presence, it was such a demonstration of pure Krishna consciousness. And we all see the, you know, different videos and films of Srila Prabhupada, but the way Prabhupada conducted himself and everything, I mean, just Prabhupada drinking water was just amazing, just to see him do that, you know. I mean, that was because he was such a transcendental personality. And because he was so transcendental, he's able to give himself to all of us. Many of you, most of you probably never saw Prabhupada in person. But you're committed to Prabhupada because you've been touched by Prabhupada. And that is a very rare quality, to be able to touch someone. Because we all have a low side of being protected. You know, we want to protect ourselves from others. There's a little inhibitory, something that inhibits us from offering ourselves to others. Because when you offer yourself to others, you become vulnerable. But a pure devotee, he's never feeling himself vulnerable. He's always protected by Krishna. So Prabhupada was so capable. In any situation, he could just adjust. Like when the man came from Vrindavan, Prabhupada was talking to devotees. The man came and offered something from his garden. Prabhupada said, that's real love. When someone, and it wasn't Dale Carnegie kind of thing. It was a genuine expression of love. Prabhupada could love everyone, you know, because he didn't have these things blocking him and inhibiting him. So, as much as we can have different techniques and we can have, you know, different seminars and so forth on how to deal with each other and how to deal, the real thing is Krishna consciousness. The problems we have is we're not on at least I'm not on a very high Krishna conscious level, and therefore it inhibits my ability to be with others, to do other things, to serve. But if I was a very Krishna conscious person, then I could be with everybody. I wouldn't have any problems. You know? So I have to work on my own Krishna consciousness. I have to make progress. This is a symptom of my neophyte stage. You know? But if I was more advanced, that wouldn't be there. And when Hamsadutta one time approached Prabhupada, said, Prabhupada, you know, these devotees are Maya. He said, well, you're all in Maya. But I made you Krishna conscious. So if you're so Krishna conscious, then make them Krishna conscious. If you have a problem, something's not working, it's really because you're not so Krishna conscious that you can't bring the consciousness to a higher level. The Prabhupada was able to bring us to a higher level, just by a few words. I personally was fortunate to be in Atlanta when Prabhupada and Shrutikirti was speaking about Atlanta, and at one point we were all young kids, Radha Damodar devotees that had a darshan with Prabhupada. Prabhupada was encouraging them, saying, you old brahmacharyas, very nice, stay like this. If you're distributing books, and keep distributing books, 90% of your chance of going back to Godhead. And if you get married, 25%. So he said, avoid all headaches, don't get married. So he was, and he was so many letters of book distribution and so forth. So one morning, I think it was Narantra, that's what I was told, but the devotee asked Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? And you could see, the air one was in harmony. Prabhupada was going to say book distribution, we're all going to be fired up, we're all going to be jacked up. But Prabhupada was very sensitive. He understood, okay, I'm going to encourage these fellows to do books, but what about everybody else? So Prabhupada said, if you love Krishna. And it just raised their consciousness to a higher level. We could understand, if I love Krishna, I'll do books, but I'll clean the floor, I'll do anything. I won't be like a fanatic, like Alanath. He was in Vrindavan and he told Prabhupada, when I come to Vrindavan, I don't buy saris, I don't buy anything, it all goes for books. Prabhupada said, that's fanatical. Imagine Prabhupada receiving that, you don't buy saris, you don't buy dhotis, you don't buy tilak, or you just all books. It made no sense, So sometimes the devotees were trying to do things to please or impress Prabhupada, but Prabhupada wouldn't buy into it. He was so down to earth all the time. It was just amazing to have a person so down to earth. And I was telling Siddhanta, when I first came to Krishna consciousness, the first thing I heard Prabhupada say, he said, better to make an intelligent person your enemy than make friends with fools. I thought, wow, this is so down to earth, it's so practical, Because he said, an intelligent person, even though he's your enemy, he'll think twice before doing something. But a fool will do anything. Prabhupada said, no lazies and no crazies. But I was in the beginning saying we're all crazies. Therefore we need a system, as Prabhupada describes, Varnashram. And even though one may be a pure devotee, he works within that system, but he's not influenced. Like Ramananda Roy, although he's considered a Sudra, the servant of the king, but he's not a Sudra, he's a pure Vaishnava. And to the point where Lord Chaitanya had him speak to him about Krishna consciousness. And he'd say, Ramananda Roy, go further, go deeper. So to show that a Vaishnava is transcendental, all these things. But he may do like the teacher writing ABC, but we shouldn't think that because he's writing ABC, he's learning the alphabet. At the same time, we shouldn't project ourselves on a higher level than we actually are. We should see that I need to structure my life, and therefore there's no material impediment. We're not saying, okay, if you want to become a Krishna conscious devotee, only a sannyasi. That's only when you become spiritual. No, you're grihastha, vanaprastha. All these things can be there. But the predominant thing, as Maharaj, the verse he read, is that we want to hear and chant about Krishna. That's our predominant desire. We have to do our duty. Even when you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya would go and see Haridas Thakur, and then it describes then he went to perform his duties. He had to bathe, he had to do things, he had to eat. There are duties that we have to perform. But they're not our focus. Our focus is how am I going to... It's like the karmis, they work all week and they want the weekends off for their enjoyment. So the devotee does his duty, but he's excited to when am I getting to get the chance to hear and read and chant and be with devotees, and that's my joy in life. That's my, that's what enthuses me to hear and read about Krishna. But I'll do these things, it's okay, I gotta do my duty, whatever it is. But I'll be excited about this. That's a sign of advancement, that we're excited to be with devotees, we're excited to chant, we love to hear the holy name, we love to chant, we love to talk about Krishna, Tustyanticha, Ramanticha, that's our lives. So the sign of intelligence is to mold our lives in such a way that we can do that the most. We can simplify our lives, we can, and we can hear and chant about Krishna. So, of of course, brahmacharya life is a simple life, the best life, because you're taken care of. You have should have no financial anxiety. If you're going to be, brahmacharis are forced to be worried about money, then might as well get a wife. I'm already making money. I'm a provider. So we should make sure our brahmacharis don't have financial concerns. And the grihasthas, they have a license to make money, and they're the stomach of society. They're meant to provide, to extend their wealth to the other members of society, especially the brahmacharis and the sannyasis, who are going forward on the front line to preach and creating the infrastructure by which they can preach. And by doing that as grihasthas, we will feel part of the Sankirtan movement and will be more inspired to make money. If you're just making money to pay bills, it's depressing. But if you're connected with the Sankirtan, well, then you'll be more inspired to make more money, and then you can donate books, you can maintain the temple, you can sponsor feasts, you can, and you may not be necessarily in the front line, but you'll be part of that preaching. And that will keep us very fired up. So as grihasthas, if we want to remain in the fire of Krishna consciousness, which many times Krishna Dulal is expressing, that how do we keep fired up in Krishna consciousness, that we have to stay connected with the preaching. And this is how, one way, that of course, if a grihastha can go out and do it, fine, but if he's, then, but he has that license to make money, and of course, money is required. Prabhupada used to say that some sadhus, when you give them money, their hands go behind their back, but he said, my hand comes forward, I know what to do with money. Yeah. Yeah, he would spend it. So yeah, so everything is a natural process. It's Krishna consciousness. It's nothing artificial. Everything is meant. And if we can, and then the brahmacharis and the sannyasis, they appreciate the grihasthas because they see these are the ones who are providing. They're facilitating my preaching. They're not just like mundane individuals just trying to make money and living comfortably and all that. No, they're offering the fruits of their labor in the process of devotional service. So everyone gets appreciated. If we could organize ourselves in that way, I think we would accomplish a lot more. Of course, I'm not trying to, make any administrative points here, but just philosophically, ourselves, if we want to stay in Krishna consciousness, if we want to relish, we have two business. We have to make ourselves Krishna conscious, and we have to give Krishna consciousness to others. And it's very inspiring when you see others take the Krishna consciousness. And there was a famous boxer, Muhammad Ali. He had won so many fights and so forth. But he would always practice in the junior arenas. There's different, when you go and practice, there are different clubs, and there's a club for the elites. So he was asked one time that you're such a big boxer, what are you doing with the juniors? You should be boxing with the big time, He said, no, I enjoy the enthusiasm of the young guys, because they haven't won anything, so they're really determined. The other ones, they're slacking off, they've won, they've got the medals, they got the trophies, hey, my name and fame is there. But these young guys, they're determined, So, sometimes to be with young devotees is very inspiring for us older devotees, and maybe for the younger devotees it's inspiring to see us older devotees. So even on that level, we can all be enthused for different reasons when we're all together. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much, and hope you have some questions. Yes, Gauraji.
I was thinking, thank you for the wonderful class. I was thinking how it was interesting that Srila Gorkishordas Babaji, who Uttam Adhikari Mahabhagavat, going to Vrindavan saying, I couldn't find any Vaishnava, because normally Uttam Adhikari is seeing everyone as serving Krishna better than they are. So I was thinking, well, I guess to make such a statement, he was speaking from a Madhyam platform. to say I couldn't find any Vaishnavas, because that would not be something that he would say from Uttam Adhikari platform. Would you agree?
I would say so. I don't know exactly, you know, I mean,
In context.
yeah, sometimes Vaishnavas, they make an extreme situation just to make a point, you know. So he was maybe making a point at that time particularly.
I was also, another comment is how you mentioned how Srila Prabhupada loved to be with his devotees. So, you know, at a certain point in our ISKCON history, it seemed that Srila Prabhupada's predominance was being eclipsed by other personalities. So then things swung to the other extreme. Prabhupada, only Prabhupada, we don't want to know about anybody else. But then that could be, it could be a form of,
It's on.
Oh, it could be a form of impersonalism. That Prabhupada, I don't want to hear about anybody else, I only want to hear about Prabhupada. Don't tell me about anybody, any of his disciples or anybody that ever interacted with Prabhupada. Prabhupada, only Prabhupada. That can also be a kind of, I'm not saying that to minimize Prabhupada's position. I'm just thinking about that other extreme. Because Prabhupada loved his disciples, and Prabhupada loves to hear his disciples being glorified. He wants to see them do well in their Krishna consciousness and preach even more than he did. Yes?
Yeah, but I'm not too sure the question of others. You mean other disciples of Prabhupada are taking prominence, or other God brothers of Prabhupada, or other people?
Well,
when you say others,
of the mentality of those who, you know, minimize. You know, they want to only focus on Prabhupada, and they don't want to.
Well, that could-
essentially, it's the Ritva philosophy.
okay. Well, I mean, it's nice that they want to focus on Prabhupada,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, but to say that it's, and indirectly it's kind of insult to Prabhupada, because you're saying, I love Prabhupada, Prabhupada was so great, but he couldn't accomplish anything because he didn't make any advanced devotees. Therefore, I'm just sticking to Prabhupada. But that's not what Prabhupada wanted. When Rupanuga told us that when Prabhupada left New York and went back to India, you know, he had his health issues and so forth, they were only listening to Prabhupada. No one was giving class. They were all just young devotees. They didn't know anything. So Rupanuga wrote to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, yes, we're going on with the program, we're chanting our rounds, and we're hearing a lecture from you every day. Prabhupada said, that's not the process. The process is to hear and chant. So you have to give class. You've heard, now you have to speak. And he encouraged the devotees to give Bhagavatam class. I mean, I'm speaking here. Why is not Prabhupada? We could all just be listening to Prabhupada, a lecture of Prabhupada. There's so many lectures of Prabhupada. But that's not the process Prabhupada gave us. He didn't say that when I'm not in the temple, then you just listen to tapes of me. He said, no, the Bhagavatam class will go on and the devotees will be giving class. So he wanted us to listen amongst ourselves. And when he was in Vrindavan, he was giving the example that we should all be like doctors. You know, the doctors, sometimes there's a very serious case. They don't know what to do with the case. So they get together and they propose different strategies of how to deal with this patient. The Prabhupada said you should be like that. You should be like doctors getting together and forming ideas of how to spread Krishna consciousness, how to become... He didn't want to just be constantly the center of everything. That's never what Prabhupada said. He wanted... You know, so it's a kind of fanaticism. You know. But if you feel threatened by everybody else, then okay, stick with Prabhupada, fine, you know, I mean, it's not a sin.
Or if you've been heartbroken, you put your faith in people, they let you down.
Yeah, but
you
you...
feel safe in Prabhupada's security.
Yeah, but that requires discrimination. It's not because you get one counterfeit bill that all bills are counterfeit, right? Or all are fake diamonds, they're real diamonds. So there has to be real devotees. And I mean, we have to solidify our Krishna consciousness also. I mean, of course, like what the Prabhupada said, don't be the, of your own karma, don't be the instrument of your karma. So, you know,
Don't become angry. Don't be upset.
yeah, don't be upset about all that. So we have to become attached to Krishna, and we have to understand that it's not going to be an easy road. It's not because now we've come to Krishna consciousness that everything's going to be rosy and perfect. It's not an aspirin, you know. Krishna consciousness is not an aspirin. I mean, to just cover the pain, cover it. No, we have to go through things. And I always say that actually pain is a very wonderful thing. It's a great thing to be, because when do you go to see a doctor? Only when you feel pain. Otherwise, why would you go to see a doctor? Sometimes people catch cancer, they didn't know, because they didn't know, they didn't feel any pain. So pain is a good thing. Pain is symptomatic that something is wrong. I have to do something about it. So, in our Krishna consciousness, if something happens, then we have to analyze. And if we can't be falling apart every time something happens, we have to be solid enough. We have to adjust, you know, we may have to do things and adjust and rethink, you know. And it takes two to tangle, and Prabhupada said when you put two spoons together, they'll make noise, you know. So it's to be expected that when you're together with others, there'll be some disagreement, there'll be some friction and so forth. And well, who was slapped during Rath Yatra? I forget now the pastime, but he was, you know, was it Advaita who slapped one devotee or something like that, or Srivas, or?
King Prataparu's secretary slapped
Srivas Thakur. And he was going to retaliate, and he was told, no, you got the blessing, you got the mercy, you know. And, well, I'll let Shrita Kirti.
Just a quick, in regards to the class situation, in Vrindavan, it was Nitai. He wasn't going to class because he was higher level, and he just found it all very boring. And so, again, he asked Prabhupada for permission to hear from others, and Prabhupada said, well, if you're so good, then you get the class, but not that you go. So Prabhupada did want to keep people within the organization and not go outside, but he said, then, you know, you're so good, and you can be giving the classes. So that was his way of dealing with it.
Yeah, but that was with outside people, wasn't?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
But inside, the Gores seems to be mentioning also like inside people. In other words, ISKCON's not, you know, the devotees and people in ISKCON are not so great, therefore I'm not going to be, right? Is that part of your
Is that what you're
question?
saying, Gordon?
What am I saying?
Well, you were saying it's the Ritvik. In other words, there's no pure devotee, there's no real gurus in ISKCON, you know, it's all a bogus system, and everyone should
If you
just
want to
be...
follow Prabhupada's example, Prabhupada loves his disciples, and he loves his grand disciples even more. He wasn't this crazy fanatic that, you know, you only honor me, and everyone else, you know, they're small timers, they shouldn't even be acknowledged.
Who says that?
I think that we need to follow the example of Jayananda, who became, you know, Prabhupada sort of certified him as the first pure devotee in ISKCON. So Jayananda, when he, is it on? Yeah. When Jayananda, when he was being glorified, he would run. But he would always glorify other devotees. He would always talk about how wonderful other devotees were. He was always pushing them forward in devotional service. He was always making sure that others were engaged. And you know, there's so many stories where, you know, people were, you know, throwing beer bottles at the Rath Yatra cart, and all the devotees were like, let's go beat him up. And Jayananda was, no, take him
He
prasadam.
needs some persona.
And they took him prasadam, and he became a devotee, you know.
I think Adikeshwara was the person.
Yeah, right. So, you know, it's just, you know, there's so many ways in which Jayananda really taught us and set the example for how we should be in ISKCON. And I think, you know, we need to look at that and really try to live up to that standard, you know, imbibe that standard, live up to it, and glorify other devotees. We should always be looking at other devotees that they are so much greater, you know, that they have this quality and that quality, and they're good at doing this and good at doing that. Just look for the good in everybody. Jayananda did that perfectly and never failed.
It's normal though, like if you've been in a relationship and that relationship didn't work and you got cheated, that it's very difficult to get back in another relationship. And sometimes you sabotage the relationship because you're so afraid of again experiencing that even you come close to someone and you just like pull out, you know. So some people have been hurt and affected by different devotees, and it's difficult for them to come back into a relationship because they're always afraid that again that will, because when you expose, a relation means you're going to expose yourself to someone and you become vulnerable. In that love and trust, right? The more I love and trust you, the more I'm going to reveal myself to you. If you're a stranger, I'm not going to tell you where I live. But if you're a friend, I'll invite you to sleep over. But I'm not expecting that while I'm sleeping, you're emptying out the apartment, right? I mean, I wake up and everything's gone, right? Wow, what a friend. Invite him over and he's like emptied out my apartment. You invite someone that you trust, but you can be vulnerable because that guy could knock you over the head while you're sleeping, could steal you, and there's stories like that sometimes. So I don't want to be hurt again, so I'm like, and a way of saying that, well, there's no advanced devotees, there's no real devotees, there's no this, that in ISKCON or whatever, But that's not, you gotta go over that and realize, no, okay, there may be, it's idealistic to assume that everyone's a pure devotee, We want to, it's like, that's not reality. It's assuming, no, I mean, Prabhupada said that ISKCON's a hospital. We're all sick at different levels and we're all trying to get cured. So you don't want to be a victim, but at the same time, you don't want to prevent yourself from being in that association.
I think we just have to remember too that there's a big difference between pure devotee and Mahabhagavata, Uttamadi.
Yeah.
Pure devotee doesn't necessarily mean Mahabhagavata. Because Prabhupada, when he was asked how many pure devotees in ISKCON, he said all. And so
It's the vision.
And it's really how much we're just following. If we are chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regulative principles, reading Prabhupada's books, and helping others become Krishna conscious, then we're pure devotees.
Yeah.
We're following the process purely. And we're on the path and we'll get to the goal. But if we deviate from the path, then our purity is somewhat.
We'll have Siddhanta and then.
There's a question here that is on the
Oh,
side.
okay.
Couple more.
I don't know. I mean, this is.
Okay.
Is it okay to continue? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is the end. Might as well.
Okay. So someone had a question.
Siddhanta's here.
Siddhanta.
Okay, Siddhanta.
So this is a story that kind of gives us a living example how we have to be able to tolerate each other. And this is a story that Aniruddha told me that he was with Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco, but before that he was mentioning that there's a devotee named Makanlal, brother of Narayan. He's now he's a sannyasi.
Sannyasi.
But in the early days, he and his brother were very Shakespearean in the way they chanted the mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So Aniruddha said it annoyed him. He couldn't tolerate their chanting, and when he heard them chanting, he would leave. It was just too much for him. So there was an engagement that Aniruddha drove with Makanlal, drove Prabhupada in the car to this hall that there was going to be a program. And when they got to the program, who led the kirtan was Makanlal. And Aniruddha couldn't take it. He said, I'm out of here. So he left the hall and he just couldn't hear Makanlal lead the arti or the kirtan. But on the way back, it was just Aniruddha and Srila Prabhupada in the car on the way back. And Srila Prabhupada said to Aniruddha, this Makanlal, he chants very nicely, don't you think? So Prabhupada knew his mind, but he was giving him the opportunity to. Oh, and then Aniruddha said, all he could say was, yes, Srila Prabhupada. But over time, Aniruddha's realization was that he had to learn the Lord Chaitanya, Janata piece, the Hishnuna, Madina, Manadina. This is actually how the pure devotee thinks and acts and is able to tolerate. And this is how Prabhupada, created a big family I mean, how many of our family members do we really get along with when you go to Thanksgiving? You've always got that uncle. But Prabhupada could do that because he always saw the good in everybody. One time there was, I think, Guru Kripa told me in Hawaii, Prabhupada's room was on the second floor, right, in the temple, and somebody was chanting like a cat in the alley was, crying and meowing, and he was like, couldn't tell. And Prabhupada said, oh, he keeps a nice beat, don't you think?
Can't send a note.
He keeps a nice beat.
Yeah. So Prabhupada said, who is that chanting downstairs? And Guru said, gave a name. And then Prabhupada was understood, okay, well, they don't maybe carry a tune, but they do keep a nice beat. Always saw the good, never saw so, we always have to see Prabhupada as an example, and don't get discouraged by seeing who we think is somebody that, is a devotee. I think she mentioned once yesterday, found somebody that was not acting as a Vaishnava. And actually in the Hare Krishna movie that Yadavar produced, there was a professor he interviewed, Professor McConnell, Connell, I think. And he said, well, I've seen all these devotees, but I couldn't understand what's so great about this movement until I met Srila Prabhupada. Then I understood the benefit of this movement when he met the pure devotee. So, even though, I forget who the devotee was that interviewed, he said that, Prabhupada, I only have faith in you. Prabhupada said, don't trust me, trust Krishna, I might let you down. Who was it? Pushta Krishna. Anyway, the point is, try to tolerate and always see the good in others. Hare Krishna.
Regarding trust, and considering that ISKCON is a hospital or an asylum sometimes, what to speak of the rest of the people out there. How do you trust others, and is it by trusting Krishna, and is it by being more humble and tolerant and respectful, and then when things go wrong, is it just the instrument of your karma, or do you need to use more judgment and discernment to be careful who you trust? Because it seems that you said that Prabhupada trusted Krishna and he was very vulnerable, and that was an advantage for him to help others. But then, if we're always like that with everyone, and we wear our heart on our sleeve, then we might not be exercising our discernment and judgment. So where do you draw the line, and how do you know, like, this is just my instrument of my karma, or am I not exercising my judgment to be away from, people that are, looking to hurt me, or looking to, people that are not trustworthy?
Well, of course, Srila Prabhupada had faith in Krishna, so as a pure devotee, he never felt himself vulnerable. But at the same time, he would often say, I'm a Calcutta boy, I cannot be cheated. So two things are there. It's not like we become neglectful and Krishna has to save us from our situation because we were too foolish. So Prabhupada didn't want us to be foolish. But faith is developed when there's consistency. If you meet someone who's very consistent in the way he does things, then you can start developing faith in him. But if he's not consistent, consistency means he's a person of responsibility. He's steady in what he does and thoughtful of what he considers. Like Prabhupada describes Arjuna, it wasn't a weakness, him not wanting to fight, but he was considering everything. The implication of the fight, what the results would be of all these people being killed. So we have to look at all that. We have to see, is this person a thoughtful person? When he speaks, when he does things, is he consistent? Is he, thoughtful? And then, as you learn this person, then gradually you can reveal yourself and feel more confident with that person. But it is it's not like we just open ourselves to everybody. Like sometimes people think, well, Hare Krishna is it's not a hippie movement where we just let anyone come in and it all belongs to Krishna, so I can just take anything and walk away with it. No, it's not like that. It belongs to Krishna, but I'm his caretaker, so that I have responsibility. Like if I'm managing a temple, it's not that I let anyone come in and disturb everybody. I may have to ask a person to leave because he's affecting everybody else. So I'm not being nasty towards this person, but I have to make sure that he's respectful of everybody else. So I don't know if it answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And so basically, if we so trust is something that is built over time. And,
you have to take time to develop that relationship. It's not like often when it's love at first sight, the guy's got 2 years later, it's like, oh, if I would have known what kind of person, I would have never married. Yeah, but you rushed into it too passionately. Take the time to develop that relationship and to see the consistency. If that person is, how he deals with others, if he assumes his responsibilities, and so forth, like that. So that will develop your faith and your conviction in the person.
What about the people who are, they've been hurt in the past and they put up walls, and the walls that you have to protect you end up, enslaving you? So how do they, is it just harder for them to build trust, or is it,
Well, yeah, for sure. If you've been hurt, it'll be difficult to establish, but at the same time, we're social beings. So to be alone is not a happy thing. If I put you on an island on your own, even though it's a paradise, you're going to be miserable because you want people. We want to be loved and we want to live. That's part of our nature. So if you've been hurt, then you have to analyze what happened. Was it partly my fault, or was it really all his? Usually it's half and half, Maybe something I said made him to react, or maybe he was already frustrated with another situation and he blew at me, but actually he was already frustrated from something else. So you have to look at everything else rather than just condemn the person, so he was just a nasty person. But so there are different things, So I think I've taken enough all of your time. Oh. Yeah. Thank you so much for your patience. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada.